All right. So we started with Unstoppable because that is the song that I think of when I think of our guest today, Christina Danai. Oh my goodness. I think all of you are going to look for a song that's going to motivate you. And I hope that one comes to mind because it's certainly how I felt after talking to her and just our first interaction. So my first interaction with Christina was when she was awarded the Joy Bright Hancock Award. And we'll talk more about that. But welcome. We are recording. So if anyone, you might need to acknowledge that we're recording right now, but today's Lean On Navy. If this is your first time, I'll tell you a little bit about how it goes. This is our agenda. Basically spend about 3 minutes kind of explaining what Lean On is. And we'll do quick polls just to kind of get you warmed up if you're just logging in here. And then I get to introduce our topic and our guest mentor. And then we're going to go on go on mute. I'll go on mute as well. And I might interrupt you because Christina has told me her story and I had no edits. I was like, it's all wonderful, but can you make it a little bit shorter? I didn't know what to take out though. So if you leave things out, Christina, I might just interject, like, don't forget this part because your story is so amazing. So we'll listen to Christina tell us her story, and really fascinating story. Just be inspired to hear how she's getting it done out there. And I hope all of us can find ways to get it done. Then we go to a breakout room, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 people per session. I'll have a question for you to pose to kind of get to know each other, and then to kind of take away what are our takeaways from Christina's story, and then come back, and then we wrap up at the hour. We'll probably be close to the hour at that point. So feel free to log off at any point, but if you can stick around, we call that the after party. I usually stop recording if it gets a little more personal. I ask you to select speaker view on your screen so you can get the story. Feel free to log off. Do not need to request permission or anything. Just distractions come up. Just catch the recording later. Happy to have you use chat, engage, write your questions, write your comments, engage one-on-one with people. That's totally okay. The whole purpose of this is professional development and connection. Otherwise, I ask you to be on mute unless I call on you. There's a few links there. You probably have already been to Lean On Navy or been to our Facebook, great place to put comments. And then just a plug for Sea Leader if you want to be a member of SSLA. And this is our guest here today. So we call her Optimistic and Chang with the bangs. But before we do that, let's just do a quick introduction. So I just generally like to say to everyone, if you have access to chat, go ahead and put in chat, where are you right now? It's always fun to see if we're in different time zones. And then what's your professional perspective? So I'm going to put, I'm in Seattle, and my perspective right now is as the force nuclear propulsion officer. I can't even spell nuclear while I'm typing. But that's kind of give you a sense of who we have in the audience. And then if you ever want to reach out to someone else in the audience, say, hey, I'm in the same place you are, that's fine. Or if you want to reach out to someone and say, hey, we have similar jobs, let's connect. That's kind of the purpose of everyone kind of scrolling and putting their introductions in the chat. One of the great ways that this community continues to build connection. So I appreciate people that are willing to introduce themselves in chat and to kind of see where we are over the globe and who we draw. And so fascinating to see all the new people today and some of our tried and true. It's really, really fascinating to see who comes because this is a self-selecting audience, I like to say, of learning leaders. So Admiral Fabry, I just caught you there. Good to see you, ma'am. Congratulations on your retirement. Oh my goodness. So great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Emily.
Wonderful. And she's coming out to live in my part of the woods. So we'll be neighbors soon.
Can't wait.
Can't wait in the Pacific Northwest. So that'll be great. Admiral Adams, good to see you, ma'am. I'm still just catching who's here today. So thanks everyone for coming. I haven't had a chance to say hello to everyone, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Mostly I want to just kick it over to our mentor today. And our mentor is Lieutenant Christina Danai, and she is hailing us from the USS Manchester. So the background there you see is the operations officer's stateroom on my first ship, the ship that I commanded. I was the first commanding officer. So it's just such a great full circle, real highlight for me to see the chief engineer / ops officer, Chang with bangs, killing it. on USS Manchester, and just the joy I had in hearing her story, meeting her, and then hearing what she's overcome. I think all of you will be inspired. So with that, Christina, over to you. I will go off mute. All right, you're still on mute. Have you come off mute, Christina? There you are.
Of course, it's going in and out. Of course it is. That's okay. My cell is going to see if she can bring me her hotspot. It's a little stronger power. So if I get cut off, I will come right back. Can everyone hear me okay? Cool. Well, hello. Thank you all for spending some time with me on a Friday afternoon. How exciting. When Captain Bassett asked me to do this at first, I was a little bit nervous, but then I just channeled that same nervous energy when I received the Joybright Hancock Award in front of like 1,100 awesome women from all over the country and the world even, and was like, okay, I think I can do this on Zoom. I can do this. So thanks for having me, ma'am. I appreciate the opportunity. So Captain Bassett asked me to just speak a little bit about me and my story, and so yeah, I'll just hop in and share a little bit about me and grab something from it and use it to carry them through maybe a tough time or find inspiration somewhere. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was not from a military family by any means. I don't have a long list of historical service members of any type. I'm actually, I'm first generation American. My family is from Iran, and I was taught at age. So is my audio still coming in okay?
So it came out a little bit, and I also know enough that I can plug in, but yeah, go ahead. You're doing great.
Awesome. And so, yeah, I was taught from a young age to be very patriotic and to care deeply about like our country and the freedoms that we have. So I was looking for something to do in high school. I wanted to be edgy and different. I grew up speed skating. It wasn't really a sport that I could do with my classmates in high school. And so I was pretty bored with the PE option. And I saw that there was an NJROTC option in my high school. And so I joined that because it was cool and different. While in NJROTC, I was introduced to a Naval Academy midshipwoman. She came to speak to us when I was about a sophomore in high school, and she was wearing her dress blue uniform. And as you know, those SDVs are sharp, and a woman in a skirt, and she's got all of the swag of a Naval Academy midshipman. And she came and talked, and I honestly just thought she looked so good in her uniform. I was like, I don't have anything else to share. I hardly really remember what she said, but I knew that she presented herself so professionally. She looked so polished. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to wear that uniform. She looks so great. And she had nothing but great things to say about Annapolis. And it was from that moment I felt quite the fire under me to want to apply to the United States Naval Academy. I really did not even know what that meant and what I was getting myself into. I didn't have any people to ask about. None of the people in my ROTC unit have ever gone there. None of the people that were leading the unit had commissioned in a normal way. So it was kind of a new journey for everyone, the application process and everything. And in Las Vegas, we're kind of not near any Navy influence at all. So a lot of Air Force recruiters and Army recruiters, but no Navy. So going through the application process was crazy. I put all my eggs in one basket. I was 100% dead set on attending Annapolis, and I could be told no different. My parents are like, what do you even, like, do you even know what you're signing up for? It's like, no, not really, but she looked so good. They're like, you really should go visit the campus. I think you should go see like what it is that they're gonna have you do there before you just throw yourself in this. And I was thinking of like, Few Good Men and Demi Moore. And I'm like, yeah, get something, cool like that. It'll be fine. So I started this, there was a program for summer training that you could go to the Naval Academy and visit the campus for a week. And that's what I did. I earned a scholarship to actually go visit that campus. And at the time I was working at the Bellagio, hashtag Las Vegas living, and making pretty good money lifeguarding at a luxury hotel on the Strip. And so I take this week in Annapolis and I'm just overcome by excitement by the campus and just the aesthetic and the history and all the people that I was interacting with and meeting. I just knew immediately. I was like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to go to school. Eggs all in this basket now. So I apply, I'm knocking these, the interviews out of the park. I've got this application, which was like the last application to be on paper, by the way, like right before online applications were a thing. So I'm like handwriting these applications with perfect penmanship to make sure they like judge me by my handwriting, of course, is what I'm thinking. And I send this application in, and sadly, I did not get accepted on the first round. And wow, what a blow to like your confidence and everything. And I did not apply anywhere else, and I had no intention to do so. So I was accepted to the Naval Academy Foundation program. So I was able to get a partial scholarship to go to prep school for a year. And that's what I did. And my parents are like, are you sure you don't want to apply to like UNLV or literally any other school just so that you have some backup options? And I told my parents, like, there is no need for a backup plan. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. And I want to be a naval officer and I want to go to that school. So I went through prep school, and that was its own transition and learning experience. And the prep school was predominantly for Air Force Academy. It was an Air Force Academy feeder prep school. So I was one of, I think, 7 total of us who actually was even applying for the Naval Academy, and the rest were going Air Force. So we were just our own little tribe, and there were all kinds of things I had to overcome there, just transition. It was in Big Bear in the mountains, so very different from Las Vegas city life. And that's got its own story, but quite a bit of growth there. Went back and just prepared myself for plebe summer. And when I got to the Naval Academy, I think a huge turning point in my life was kind of experiencing what that cultural shock was going to be. And I just was not, there's no preparation for it. You just get there and here we are. I grew up in a very diverse high school, in a very diverse neighborhood, lots of different things that I was exposed to at a pretty young age. And it was almost like reverse exposure. I get to the Naval Academy and it's all white men and all from affluent families. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is a very different surrounding for me. I had a hard time figuring out exactly where I fit in. I'm just leaving, like working, like I said, at the Bellagio on the Strip, where like, your appearance is everything, your social skills take you very far. And that is the opposite of what was happening at the Naval Academy. There were times where I questioned if I had made the right choice, but I had so much, I had put all of my eggs in this basket. I just was like, you know what? No, the end goal was to be that woman in that uniform. So that's what I'm going to do. So continue to press through. And it was, I would say, it was more difficult than I could have anticipated, and not because it was academically difficult, not because it was physically difficult. Socially and interpersonal relationships found to be the most difficult part for me at the Naval Academy. Really what it was coming down to, I didn't know it at the time, was I was trying to figure out how to be myself and navigating this discomfort of being me and being authentically me in this petri dish of a place that's molding leaders for the fleet. I commissioned in 2012 and found myself as the deck division officer on a brand new commissioning LPD. So LPD 22 USS San Diego. I was part of the commissioning crew there. And immediately, if you know anything about being a surface warfare officer, and if you got any perspective of deck department life, it's rough. And it is the most diverse, typically hold the engineering department, most diverse on the ship. And so oddly enough, there was a lot of chatter, like, how is this girly girl from Las Vegas going to handle her time in deck department? And I felt like I was at home. I was like, finally, I'm surrounded by the diversity of a fleet department full of sailors of all different age ranges, from different backgrounds and different life experience paths. And so I thrived in deck department and loved every minute of it. it was quite an eye-opener to start to learn about the different paths that people took to get their commission. So as a junior officer, you start to develop relationships with other junior officers in your wardroom. And I'm thinking, wow, everyone really took some different paths to get here. And I started to realize that not everyone had the same excitement to serve, or they felt like there was this entitlement that they had to them because they were officers. And I started to realize that not everybody was serving for the same reasons. And that was interesting for me to kind of work through, as I was like, man, people really think that they're owed quite a bit of stuff around here. what is going on? And that's its own leadership challenge, right? To learn how to coexist with your peers that you're just not even seeing eye to eye with on how they handle themselves or conduct business. So a lot of times I would find myself feeling like an outsider, not really clicking well in my own JO clicks that should be developing. And yet again, I'm finding myself really what it boils down to in hindsight was I was really trying to figure out how to navigate being myself in this environment. I left that tour, and when I was speaking with Captain Bassett just a little bit, I will say that nothing in my Navy career, even to this point now, has ever gone my way. I mean, it has always worked out, but it was never as I had planned. So I had thought I'd get to the Naval Academy first try. I did not. I got the great opportunity to go to that LPD, but when I slated for my second tour, I thought I'd go to another amphib. I did not. I got orders as DCA on a cruiser, USS Lake Erie, CG-70. That I thought I was going to be a San Diego sailor. It was in Pearl Harbor. It was actually home port shifting, so I did find my way back to San Diego. It was an all-male crew at the time. We had not done the conversion to bring women on board, so just women officers served on Lake Erie at the time. And to say the least, it was difficult. It put a damper on what I had as a perspective for what it meant to be to serve in the Navy. I was within the first few days assigned to be the investigating officer on a classmate who there was a huge fraternization case that was unraveling. And so it was really difficult to start to meet the crew within the first few days by reading them their Miranda rights and investigating a good majority of my peers and my subordinates. So I was the bad guy. And it was really difficult to crawl out of that hole as the person that was the adversary from the very beginning. There were a lot of other things that I was exposed to on that tour as well. My CO was relieved, and that can be a discomfort if you've ever experienced that. And there were all kinds of things that are in Navy Times from that time period if you're interested. But to say the least, I struggled. I struggled really, really bad. This was everything I had wanted to do, was to be a surface warfare officer, to serve in the fleet, and to do it proudly. And it was kind of crashing and burning. And I had to make a very difficult decision and not let it feel like I was failing. But I chose to leave my ship on mental health limited duty. So to make that choice and feel like you're quitting, to make that choice and feel like it's a cop-out to leave the sailors behind. Like, just imagine, like, this was everything I had wanted to be doing. And all of my friends from back home know I'm doing it, and I'm feeling incapable. And the environment was just that bad that is what I had to do for my own mental sanity. So leaving that tour, I was really ready to get out of the Navy, and I felt very lost. I wasn't really sure if I had made the right choice. I'm like, man, I should have listened to my parents, done something else. And I just couldn't understand why, like, being myself and trying to be the passionate leader that I am just wasn't landing well anywhere that I had been. So I was at the Beachmaster Unit 1 on my limb due at my shore duty. And I met Captain Jessica O'Brien. She's the commanding officer of the SEAL Beach bases up north. And she was an incredible woman SWO mentor that really believed in me and could see the fire that was hidden underneath the embers of what had been put out from that second tour. And she really gave me the space and the opportunity to grow. I think the most important thing I learned there was that it would be okay to be myself. So I have this space to grow, and she gives me this full range. She didn't treat me like I had, some sort of crutch. She didn't baby me because I had counseling several times a week. She gave me a department and let me run with it. And it was incredible, the re-sparking of passion that I had for the Navy and the SWO community, the Surface Warfare Officer community altogether. I planned midshipman summer trainings that received quite a bit of high praise from, those commanding officers in the area. And I was training all the new midshipmen coming in from ROTC and the Naval Academy. And it was just so fun to me to train and to lead. And people would come up to me and be so inspired, right? But they don't know that I'm at this shore duty on limited duty because I left my ship. They don't know that. They're just seeing me and they want to be where I am. And they were, the women would come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, ma'am, how do you do your hair?" And, or, "Oh, do you love being in the Navy? Tell us about it, being a girl on a ship." And they're none the wiser, right? And so I just really embraced that. I didn't want my isolated incident to, unfortunately, damper anyone's viewpoint, because everyone does have a different experience. So I was very careful about how I would communicate to the midshipmen, though I was in a difficult place myself. And so I made the decision with Captain O'Brien, and she had really, talked me through. I was thinking about leaving on medical discharge, and she's like, "I really think you should give it another try. The Navy isn't just that ship." So I listened to her, and if anyone's familiar with the slating process for choosing orders, it can be kind of rigorous. I was only given the leftovers of jobs, so I was able to choose from one of 3 options, and I put them in order of precedence, and I didn't get any of those 3 jobs at all. So once again, the Navy was blessing me with options I didn't ask for. And in 2000, I think it was 2014, I ended up being slated to be the electronic material officer on a brand new littoral combat ship, the LCS. And at the time, it was such early on in the program's, development, that everyone had terrible things to say. And mostly because they just didn't know. They didn't know about the program. It was so new. And so, great, now I'm going back to sea, and all of my mentors are cringing that I've got these orders. So I'm really digging deep to try to figure out how I'm going to make it through another sea tour when most people are letting me know that it's going to be a bad time. So I take these orders in stride, and I'm trying to, use the momentum that I developed at Beachmaster Unit to decide okay, we're going to do this. I've committed. You've got to bloom where you're planted. So I take these orders, and it was incredible. The crew, hold the 3-section duty, hold the long work hours, hold the small crew. Yes, all of that's true about LCS. That's true. But the way that a small crew comes together and gets insane things done, I was so inspired by how much output these sailors were willing to do, and do it together, and do it, for me or for the person next to them. And I just felt immediately re-brought into the fold and invigorated by the excitement of being a SWO and a naval officer. So on that tour, I had gotten to do some awesome stuff. I commissioned the USS Detroit. We did the sail around through the Great Lakes in the fall. Picture it now, the Great Lakes in the fall, all the foliage, right? The lock system passing Niagara Falls into the Atlantic. I didn't even know that you could get to the Atlantic from Wisconsin at all till I was doing it. Okay, so you're doing the Great Lakes sail, and I'm sailing down south, and what does the Navy do? It gets me again. I think I'm going to San Diego, and they decide all the 1 variant ships are staying in Mayport, although LCS 1 variant ships are staying in Mayport, Florida. That is not where my belongings were, or my life, or my husband at the time. So we wait in Mayport, Florida for a relief crew, and they come, and 5 months later, we're relieved from the USS Detroit, and we can all fly back home to San Diego, where we became the permanent crew of USS Fort Worth. And that was its own crazy experience. Fort Worth had just started coming back from a really terrible, tragic engineering casualty that we were going to dry dock the ship to push through. And here I am finding myself in yet another maintenance availability, and that is its own monster itself. But what a crazy time. So I find myself in San Diego again, and I decide I'm going to sign for department head, which is a bonus, and it's a big next milestone in the surface warfare community to decide to stay. And just like Captain Bassett just thumbs up, a lot of surface warfare officers get excited when junior officers do decide to stay for that next commitment time. And that's exactly what I did. So when I finished my time on the Fort Worth, I ended up getting amazing shore duty orders. It wasn't what I wanted. It's not what I asked for, but it was another blessing yet again from the Navy to teach at the Basic Division Officers course, which is the first course that you go to as a new accession surface warfare officer ensign. And it's the first introduction you get to the fleet. And while I was there, I taught damage control. And as I was teaching, we unfortunately had the collisions from the summer of 2017 with the Fitzgerald and McCain, where there were lives lost and grave damage to those vessels out there in 7th Fleet. So that happened, and the surface warfare community came together and decided that we really needed to change the way we were teaching ship handling. And here I am in the front of the tip of the spear in the front of this charge, and they established the junior officer of the deck course while I'm teaching at the Basic Division Officer course. And so it's a big focus on ship handling. And I'm thinking, you know, yes, I'm finally on shore duty, right? From this 3-section duty nightmare of LCS, and you're finally getting a break. And now we're standing up a new course with all the admirals over your shoulder, wanting to see the course curriculum and very just deep diving in. And I'm supposed to have this energy in the daytime and the evenings, teaching 2 courses on 2 different bases. And it's anyone who's done anything with new developing of anything at all. Develop something new for the first time and implement it anywhere. You can understand just that feeling. And so I was really drawing from my experience from my other 2 commissioned ships, starting something new for the first time, implementing programs for the first time. And so I felt like I was well prepared for this. And now I'm interacting with the newest officers in the SWO community for our fleet. And I realized, took me a few course convenings to realize just how big of an influence I was having on the waterfront and in the SWO community at large. And I wasn't prepared for these questions at first, but a lot of women would ask questions about what life was like being a woman on a ship. And it's just not something that I was thinking about until I was being asked it en masse a couple times a week. You're like, I don't really know. I guess I just show up as myself every day. And to answer some of these questions, and you want to be thoughtful and you want to be thought provoking and you want to be encouraging. I'm like, man, well, if I'm honest, like sometimes it really sucks. I don't know. And then I'm like, man, I mean, sometimes it's really terrible because I get my nails done and I've got to field questions and commentary by the peanut gallery or the chief's mess or same about what I'm wearing or doing. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I had never really put much thought. I was just sort of surviving in it. And as I like to say now, I was thriving in it really. And so I would start to tell these ensigns that the best thing that they could do for themselves was just be themselves from the very beginning. And it wasn't about just telling that to the women either, right? So there's all sorts of people who are adjusting to this new place called the Navy, called the fleet. And especially as a surface warfare officer, you're given a lot of responsibility at a very young age, a lot more stuff than you've ever really had to be in charge of. And I would just tell every single one of them, like, you just need to be yourself from the very beginning, be fearlessly yourself. And I started to open up about my experience on the ship, about having left for limited duty and how important it is to take care of yourself, to prioritize self-care, to prioritize exercise and good, honestly, hygiene and sleep hygiene and good, nutrition. And so I found myself really advocating for just overall wellness and living and being the best version of yourself as you can, so that you could be a good leader. Like, you can't set the example if you aren't doing it yourself. And so as I'm like sharing this with these ensigns, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is so important. I really need to make sure that I remember this for myself. Like, when I get back out to the fleet, like, I can't just be saying these things. I really need to embody it. And I had such a moving experience teaching at BDOC. And to this day, I get quite a bit of people who reach back out and have questions. And it's just so crazy, the footprint that was left, not just by me, but all of the people who were teaching at that new accession course. Just really crazy how influential it is, right, at the Basic Division Officer course. So I took all of that momentum with me and was headed off to Rhode Island for department head school. At this time, my marriage had dissolved, and unfortunately, I was undergoing a divorce. So just crazy times were going on in my personal world, and it just forced me to dive just a little bit deeper into my professional world. And people were asking me, like, how are you handling this? How are you managing? I'm like, I mean, you really just gotta bloom where you're planted. Like, I had thought many times, like, maybe is this the right choice? I'd already signed for department head to commit my time to continue serving. And at every few months or so, I'd be like, man, I sure hope I'm doing the right thing. And then I'd be re-inspired again by another amazing class convening of these ensigns. And that's kind of the momentum I carried through. So I leave at the beginning of 2020. Everyone has their 2020 story. I leave for Rhode Island, and I get there just a few weeks into March. And as I'm there in Rhode Island, the world shuts down. A quick anecdotal, just so you know, like what I was dealing with in Rhode Island. I was renting a house, a two bedroom, one bathroom house in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. If you've never been, it's a beautiful place. And I was renting it from a group of America's Cup sailors who had intentions to sail the world and do their America's Cup races that whole year. But just a few weeks in, after moving in, the 8 people in the house ended up never leaving because all of the races were canceled for 2020, and they were all foreign nationals. Nobody was American. So I am now going through a very highly classified school with 8 foreign nationals in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house in Newport, Rhode Island through 2020. So everyone's lockdown experience is very different. I was surrounded by people that I can't talk to or tell them about what I'm doing all day long when I'm the only one like coming and going to and fro. I actually didn't even have a name. They didn't even address me by my name. They called me Navy Chick. These are like old, think sailors, people who live their life at sea, not like military in a uniform. I'm talking like actual sailboat livers. These are the dwellers of the sea. Okay. I'm just Navy Chick to them. And they honestly just can't believe that I'm even in the military. I, of course, am getting all the commentary about you don't look like someone who'd be in the Navy, and no way they let you drive the ship, and all of the commentary about my profession that I'm vague about with them anyway. So what an experience that was. So I finished my time out at department ed school. Oh, actually, hold on. So I'm at department ed school, and I think that I'm going to be the combat systems officer on an LCS. And that is what I asked for, and that's what I chose. And I was very excited about the opportunity. And throughout your time there, it is commonplace for the detailers, the people who give you your orders, to call you, and they bring they're the bearers of bad news usually at that time, and they come to tell you about how what you thought you were going to do or where you thought you were going to go is very different from where they're about to give you your assignment. And I had avoided this for several months, and I was good. I'm getting what I want. I'm going to San Diego. I'm going to be the combat systems officer. And then right at the end of one of the major milestone parts of that school, I ended up getting the phone call from the detailer, the dreaded call, and they let me know that I was going to be the chief engineer. And that is very different from the combat systems officer. I had a really bad panic attack. I mean, immediately started crying, sitting in my car, getting this news, and I just felt like every single time the Navy just gives me the opposite of what I want. And I'm like, what have I done to the slow gods that I am getting these, what I'm perceiving as these shorthand deals? And I'm like, man, this is tough. I had such a bad taste in my mouth from my engineering time on that cruiser that I immediately reverted back to the, oh no, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. The last time I was in engineering, I quit. Am I going to be able to carry out this task, this duty of mine now? And I called my sister, and bless her heart, she's a surface warfare officer, but transitioned to the IP, community information professional. So she's a computer nerd. And she was like, Christina, come on, you are going to be fine. You're going to be great. Think of all the things you've overcome so far. And every time that they've given you something that you didn't want, it ended up being just fine anyway. You bloom where you're planted. She's like, plus, how much fun? Like, how many Lady Changs do you know? Chang is short for chief engineer. She's like, how many Lady Changs do you know anyway? And usually there's not very many women Changs. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. She's like, come on, you'll be the Chang with the bangs. I'm like, oh my gosh. You're right. The Chang with the bangs. I'm going to lean completely into this. I am going to be so bought in, and I am going to be fearlessly myself, just unapologetically me with my bangs and the nails and the lashes and the makeup. I'm just going to be me down in this engineering pit. And it doesn't even matter. I'm going to be Chang with the bangs, and it's going to be great. And a lot of that was me like mirror talk, like convincing myself, like, right, it's going to be good. We're going to be okay. And it's so crazy because, you know, people who don't know this, they mirror talk, people who don't know this about me would probably be like, oh man, she's just been killing it this whole time. And I'm like, I've been convincing myself that I'm killing it the whole time. And I've got such really great system, network and a support system. I have a good friend. I don't want to steal it. She'll probably write a book one day, but she calls it an ecosystem. And I have a very strong and rich ecosystem that nourishes my life. So shout out to, it's her birthday today, Lieutenant Commander Erica Reed Dixon. Shout out to her for the ecosystem. Anyway, so I'm all bought in. I'm ready to go be Chang with the bangs, and I get to San Diego, and that is exactly what happened. It just felt so natural. I promised myself I would be true to who I was. I would not hold back my personality, and there's some goodness in that, right? Because people feel inspired by seeing you be yourself, and then they feel more comfortable to be authentic themselves. And now we're not in the world of make believe professionalism where people have to be and act a certain way. And so long as you're getting the job done and you're doing it with, you know, treating people with dignity and respect, and you're doing things in accordance with procedures, and you're professional, you can still be yourself. And so that was something that I really championed and try to be sure that that is communicated at every level. And I took all of the talks I was having with folks at BDOC, and I really tried to remember those things as I moved through my leadership experience here as chief engineer. And I have got to say, this has just been such a rewarding experience. The little last bit, and I'm sure Captain Bassett will remind me if I'm missing some stuff, was there was an opportunity for my operations officer to go on and teach at another course, but our captain would have to accept a big gap in that position here on the ship. And so in December of 2021, I fleeted up, which is just take on the role. I took on the role of operations officer without a chief engineer relief. So for about, it's been 9 months now, I've done both the chief engineer and the operations officer job on the ship. If you're a surface warfare officer, you know that that sounds impossible. There are many days I feel it to be very impossible, but I'm here, we're still kicking. I still have a manicure. I'm still alive. Still making it to the gym most days a week. And I know, Twyla, when do I sleep? Oh my gosh. I do not brag about this, but I have done plenty of research that there are people in the population who function on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And I'm convinced that's me, because I really weirdly do wake up feeling refreshed after about 4 to 5 hours. So that is my answer. And it is not to, if there are 8-hour folks out there, I'm sorry. I don't know how I do it either. I don't drink coffee. You don't want to see me on coffee. I don't know. That's probably the only way that this is happening, because I'm not sleeping the regular amount a night, but I feel fine. So that's good. Okay, so all of that to say, I was very excited about hearing about the Joy Bright Hancock Award. So the citation I don't have memorized, but it was about influencing and kind of the word that they used was advancing the role of women in the Navy. And so while I was at BDOC, I would get the women together, and it started as just the women, but I opened it up and realized the value in inviting everyone, but discussing women issues, but allowing it to be open to anyone who wanted to hear. And I was very impressed when a lot of the male JOs did want to come to that. I would have these sessions with my other counterparts, women instructors with the women ensigns, but open to others. And we would just talk about some of those ways to be ourselves, ways to interact, ways to coexist as other women in a wardroom, right? You would think these things don't come up, but they are very interesting how they do. Sometimes people ask, like, what's it like being the only woman? I was like, well, sometimes it's actually hard being one of 3 women in a mostly male group, you know, and finding your role there. And so we would talk about those types of things, and I'd offer my insight and advice just from previous experiences. And it proved to be very valuable. And I hear from those ladies and some of those men still to this day. So it was an initiative that I would focus on at BDOC. I also realized it wasn't just about women, but all minority groups. So we would talk about understanding the regulations of the different women and grooming standards. So I would express not just to the women, but to the men also, that everybody needed to be aware of new grooming standards for women's hair, and not just the hair that looked like theirs, but everybody's hair. And that it was inappropriate to say, if you have one Black female officer on the ship, that it would be inappropriate that you default to her only to correct instances or to ask questions of, or to assume that they'll always handle any instances of a Black woman enlisted standard on her hair. That everyone needed to know the standards because we were officers enforcing those standards. The same way that I would have to know what the men's hair grooming standards are, and I wouldn't go to a male officer to ask him to go interact with a male sailor to correct him on his haircut. That I just knew what the standard was and I could interact with that sailor. So things like that that seem so small and minute and specific, it permeates in how we learn about each other in terms of diversity and accepting those differences and celebrating them, really. And it starts with understanding them. So that was something I spent a lot of time on at BDOC as well. And then in my time after BDOC, I've worked together, and I've been so grateful to be invited to work with the Naval Junior Officer Council. So that's NJOC, the Naval Junior Officer Council, is chartered, and it started just 2 years ago. It was a 2020 born idea that came to fruition, started in the Supply Corps by Lieutenant Adam Johnson, and it now has worked its way into having billets in Washington, D.C. They work directly for Chief of Naval Personnel and Chief of Naval Research. We have active charters with the Air Boss, and we're working really hard on getting our active charter with the Surface Warfare Boss as well, SWO-Boss, and that's the Vice Admiral Kitchener, the 3-star. And what we're working to do is to just bridge the gap between junior officers and senior leaders in a way that is constructive. There's a lot of great ideas in the junior officer ranks and community, and bringing the diversity of thought up to senior leadership is super important. And that's sort of where we found ourselves. So I've found myself very involved in that and just connecting people. And that's kind of where I've been. And it was really touching to be awarded the Joy Bright Hancock Award for my efforts, both in NJOC, the Naval Junior Officer Council, and then with the women at BDOC. And I just am here, just championing being yourself and being authentically yourself, and the topic being visionary leadership. You know, I had a vision to be this, great looking woman in uniform and the skirt with the SDBs. And I look back at, I'm celebrating my 10-year college reunion this year. Oh my God, how did I get so old? But I'm like, I can't believe that I'm here, and I'll be that woman in the SDBs. And I just ask that when I check in with myself, am I being just that best 2012? I see more. I ask that I'm just being my best version of myself, and hopefully being that inspiration to someone to bloom where they're planted and to be authentically themselves and just go after your dreams, man.
Yay, Christina is so inspiring. I've been monitoring the chat, and people are just blowing up with support and with takeaways. And I can't even say even better than last time, because I am hearing your story for the second time and I'm just getting inspired here. I generally take a moment and kind of summarize the presentation for takeaways. But given that people have already been writing in the chat, I'm just going to go right to breakout rooms and make them kind of short and quick, because I think people really want to share with each other what they've been hearing, because they're writing about it in chat. So I have breakout rooms. We're going to go only 5 or 6 minutes, so it's shorter today, so we can I wanted to allow all that time for you, Christina, because the story was so inspiring. So it'll be about 2 or 3 people per room, and just ask you to go by order alphabetical of your first name, say your name, your profession, your location, and then just share one takeaway, and then we'll come back. I'll close the room out in about 5 or 6 minutes. Any questions on that? Okay, go ahead and join your room if you've been asked, and I'm going to pause the recording here, and then we'll come back out. All right, welcome back, everyone. I apologize in advance for any technical difficulties. It really makes you miss someone when they're not here. So Vic has life happening right now. And I just really appreciate what she's done. And yeah, so here we are. I so apologize for technical difficulties. I hope a couple minutes was something. Does anyone want to share what they got as a takeaway from talking to another person in the group? I could always just read what's in the chat here, but
I'm loving this chat right now. This is so great.
We had a unanimous vote in my breakout room. It was amazing. And it was relentlessly positive attitude. We love it. It's like, it was like heart eye emojis all around. And I was sharing that there was an article on HBR, because I also struggle with that because I get called Pollyanna sometimes, Pollyanna-ish. And there's an article on HBR that talked about how to be positive and being energizing with your positivity and constructive, that I just felt resonated. And I was like, that's exactly what I try to do, and what you are already doing. It's amazing. Great job. Over.
Thank you.
That's awesome, Sarah. Thanks so much. I love it. And that's kind of why I love this story too. I'm like, come just be, I mean, I got this literally from Christina as she walked across the stage. I mean, I was like, come share with me what you're doing. Love it. Okay. Does anyone else want to share? Take yourself off mute and kind of say what might have come out from your group.
Yeah, I'll go to Sandy Adams' point. Hi, ma'am. These lean-on groups tend to lead to these wonderful extended conversations, and I'm just delighted that Rachel and I got to meet in our breakout room. We had a really small room, being at the end of the alphabet here, and we're going to continue our conversation. I'm so excited, and actually some of the work that I am doing right now directly will help her, and it's just awesome to be able to connect like this. Can't thank you enough.
I love those
Emily, for
stories.
setting these
That's
up.
so great. Twyla, I see you have your hand up. Good to see you.
Hello, ma'am. How are you? Greetings from San Diego as well. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for posting this in the Female Navy Officer group, because I know you've been doing these and work is crazy and I always forget. But as soon as I saw Christina was involved, I was like, no, I am coming to this one. So I just wanted to say, Christina, I have been a huge fan of you for years, since I think I met you at the LTS Squadron 1. And honestly, I don't know how you do all you do. I mean, ops and Chang are two of the biggest positions on a ship, and the fact that you are doing both, like, mind-blowing. So I just want to say thank you for being fearlessly you. I love following you on Instagram because I don't know if you all know this, but she is a roller skating queen, and it's more than obvious that that is truly what she does. Is she lives fearlessly and authentically. So she motivates me in more ways than one. But yes, Christina, you are doing it. If you ever need anything from me here in recruiting, just holler, let me know, let us know. We're here. But you're amazing. That's all I want to say.
Appreciate you. It's so good to see your face too, Twyla, honey. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Bye.
So sweet.
So great. This is why we do this.
That's so sweet.
Why we do it.
I also peeped in the chat, but I see he hopped out, so I'll address that later. But it looks like my boyfriend dropped in here. He said, if you could be CNO for the day, any policy or program you could implement to help women empowerment in the Navy.
Okay, let's see. Go answer. What do you got?
Oh man. All right. Well, I haven't had time to think about this, but if I had to shotgun an answer to there, Lieutenant Commander Johnson, I would like to see, I mean, could this be Fantasyland? We're gonna play pretend. I would like to see a ship get underway, all woman crew, the whole crew. Just see what happens. Leave us out there for a week.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg
I
until
bet
they're
all reports
online.
will come out on time. I bet you won't have any. Just imagine, right? I could just think of all the things.
Oh my God.
I don't want to be too sexist about it, but I think it would be quite a sight to see. And just to be a woman who could say they were a part of that, I don't know, we'd like sail somewhere cool. We'd do like an all-woman sail around through 5th Fleet.
Oh my God.
And like make a huge scene. Be like, there goes a warship through 5th Fleet. And take that. I mean, I'm Iranian, so I'm Persian, so I feel like comfortable at least expressing like, yeah, I would love to see that in the tabloids. Like, look at that U.S. American warship full of females. Like, You know, take that. That'd be cool.
Oh my gosh, I am laughing all over. Just laughing. I love it. You know, and I have to say, this is a reliving for me, like to be proud of who you are as a woman. That's how you started your story. You were like watching this woman in a skirt, right?
Yeah.
Proud as a midshipman. You're like, I want to be that. And here you are 10 years later, having killed it in every job, more than one job simultaneously, killing it, award winning, making it happen, and still proud and not having to push back that you're a woman, proud to with your nails and your fangs and your eyelashes. And I love it.
It seems like such little things, right? But those little things, they lead to so many more big things. And I just think that if we're able to just be ourselves, right? And let people be, if they're uncomfortable about how you yourself you are, then maybe they could look and find out if they're not comfortable with themselves, right? Like, why is this person who's just doing them, like, you know, ruffling your feathers in some way? And usually it always comes back to it just not being something that you're used to seeing. So I saw it in the comments. What did you say? It was like the make-believe professionalism. Who was that? There it is, from Kyle Denton. Make-believe professionalism is a plague. It's true. It's true. When you visit or work with other navies, you'll see like the men have beards and the women have ponytails, and the safety of the mask. There's all kinds of studies going on right now to decide if the beard really is in the way of the, you know, self-contained breathing apparatus mask. And so there's all sorts of different things that we like to pretend is in the name of professionalism. When you really peel back the onion, sometimes it's in the name of a bias, really. It's like, what are we talking about right now? Like, I'm just as capable, if not more, and I've got, you know, the fit reps to show that, like, I'm professionally competent and capable of doing my job. And I also wear pink and have pink stuff wrapped around my wrench, and I've got nail polish and eyelashes done, and I'm doing the job just the same. You know, that my nails are not in the way of opening and closing doors and going through the main spaces and cleaning oil out of a bilge. Like, what are we talking about right now? So just be yourself. Those details, that they matter if they're celebrated, and they don't matter if we're using them as barriers.
I mean, I want to just take that as my biggest takeaway right there. I mean, that I think, and here we are at the top of the hour. Just in my own words, exactly what you just said. I think that's what I need to learn here is the little things matter because they let us be ourselves, and we try to hide them, and others might try to poke at them because it's the phrase you use is it's just not something they're used to or we're used to. And so we're just not used to it. So we judge it. And I think that's human nature. I don't want to, you know, call someone bad for thinking that way, because I would have done it too. And I do it too. I have to be taught to undo it. And your story is helping me do that, to just learn to live with all the diversity that we bring.
I had a rainbow chicken and
I see someone come off mute. I'm not sure if I can but we'll just go ahead and just say we're at the top of the hour. So if anyone wants to log off, please do. Or if you need to, obviously at any point, but we are at the top of the hour. I want to just give a huge round of applause. Thank you to Christina. You're getting everyone clapping for sharing your story. And if you have any things you want to stick around, and Christina, if you have any couple more minutes, stick around. I didn't ask you actually if you have a couple minutes. Okay, great. Anybody who wants to stick around, go ahead and feel free. And then if it gets a little bit more personal, I can happy to stop the recording, but thank you. And if anyone wants to.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I see some great comments in the chat here.
Are you back?
Is it okay if I record your question, Mom?
Oh.
Because you always ask such good questions.
Oh, right. No, now the heat is on. This is a very simple question. I want to know if the woman in uniform who first inspired you knows that. Have you ever written to her or reached out to her or let her know? Because I think
I appreciate that question. I never even knew her name. I think about that. I wouldn't say often, that would be an exaggeration, but I have thought about that at several points throughout my career. Like, man, if I could just let her know. And the way that I let her know is I just try really hard to be her for other people.
Ah, beautiful.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
You are an inspiration, and I think she would be thrilled to see what.
You know what's really cool about me not knowing her name or anything about her was it's not about her as an individual as much as what she represented, and so I've just really championed that too. It's okay. It's not about me, Christina Danai. Like, I just have to be that example.
And your
I get
parents,
the silhouette. It's
your
fine.
parents were supportive of you going into the Navy?
My parents?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been a shock for them.
I think that they were just happy that I was motivated to do something. I mean, I can imagine as parents, like, and I say that because I grew up in Las Vegas. So I have a lot of friends who did not have sights set beyond leaving Las Vegas. I mean, you really don't have to. I think Captain Bassett and I were speaking how I have a lot of people close to me that you can make a pretty good living working in the hospitality nightlife industry in Las Vegas and never need to leave. And that's great. It helps, it makes that city run. But I think my parents were just super excited that I was interested in exploring anything else.
So
Thank
great.
you. Good for you.
So great. Erin, go ahead.
I had just wanted to share two things that came out of our group. One, it was somewhat disappointing to hear, for those of us who are much older than you are, how uniform your experience was from a diversity perspective entering the Naval Academy. But alternatively, we also, and this was my comment, it brings a lot of hope for the future to hear you and what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. I will say my experience at the Naval Academy, if we're talking just at large, it was pretty uniform, monochromatic in a lot of ways. But there are a ton of really rich, healthy opportunities there that I did get to experience that I realize not everyone did lean in and take those opportunities, but I was in Midshipman Black Studies Club. I joined the gospel choir. And so I played rugby, which had its own like unique diversity to it. And I ended up finding and seeking out the diversity while at the Naval Academy, even if it wasn't, readily available in the normal midshipman experience. We were definitely there.
Yeah,
The collective we, wherever, however we identify there.
you find your way. Danielle, go ahead.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing everything. That you're definitely very inspirational and give us a lot of hope for the future. Often you look at it, I'm a captain also, and just looking at where we are and where we've come from, talking to senior folks and more junior, and just really inspirational. I'm at the War College and they do the leadership and professional arms, and they talk about authenticity, but I think they need clips of like what you're talking about to show what they mean and not just put words to it.
Right.
And also, I think you represent true diversity. We talk a lot about diversity, and I've had different women's groups at the War College, and just what the Navy seemed in the past to want was women that tried to just fit in with the men and not speak their mind. And that's not diversity. It doesn't help us in diversity of thought or any of that. And I think it's great what you're doing is wearing nail polish, doing it and being, I want to be a female. And I think that should be celebrated and not hindered. And it frustrated me when they did all the uniform changes. And it's like, wait, don't take that away from us. Let us be females. And it really they don't want us to be. And so it's inspiring to see you. And then more and I in our group, we're talking about just examples of bad leadership we've seen of some older males and seeing them get really, but the hope of the future and having good leadership that can be for everybody. So thank you. Thank you for sharing and keep going.
Thank you so much. If I can hop on that thread for just a moment. One of the topics that I would go into detail with the ensigns when I was really focusing on it just being a talk for the women before I broadened it, I would identify what I found as my experience of the different types of women on the ship. And I would start with just some broad stroke, what's the word? My vocabulary is lacking right now. stereotypes. There we go. I would start with broad stroke stereotypes. So I'd be like, okay, you're going to have the woman who doesn't wear makeup, doesn't brush her hair in the morning. She can just throw it up in a bun real quick. And if you, then you could have the woman who's like putting makeup on, she's spending extra time with her hair. Then you've got the woman who's like, you can't really tell what's her sexuality. Like, you know, I kept it really real with everyone in this group. I was like, you know, and I get real, get better. That's what we're talking about. The whole first part of that is to get real. So let's just be real about it. And so I kind of described some stereotypical like women you would see in a wardroom and how different a woman could be, right? And then I would address how terribly damaging it would be if the women weren't unified, regardless of the type or flavor of woman you are when you're serving together on a ship. And that came from my experience from my first tour. I did have, I think there were 6 of us total in the junior officers, women on the LPD and on that ship. And all of us were what you could call a different flavor, a different type of woman. No, it wasn't a group of girly girls. It wasn't a group of girls who were just trying to get along with the guys. It wasn't like that. So everyone was very different in their womanhood, right? And I experienced how toxic it is when the women collectively can't just accept that women can exist in different ways on the ship. And so what I would talk about with the ensigns were it is of no one's business how a woman chooses to get ready in the morning. So do not entertain conversations in the wardroom with the other men about whether she's wearing makeup or not. Like, then that seems so silly, but I would hear among my peers, people talking like, oh my God, she's late to quarters, probably because she's doing her makeup again. And it's like, you know, that's not why she was late to quarters. Why did you just add that? That had nothing to do with it. Why are you saying it like that? Or on the flip side, it would be like the girls who did wear makeup would always be like, you know, Jessica, whatever name, you know, Jessica, do you need a brush? You really should do your hair, like at least a little bit of mascara and you wouldn't look so like that. And we would just be criticizing what people were or weren't doing, what women were or weren't doing on the ship, as if this had any measure of how they were performing at work. And so I would address this with the ensigns that it might feel comfortable at first to just hop in and be one of the guys and participate in these types of discussions with your male counterparts and inadvertently start dragging other women because that's just what the group is doing. And it could go either way. Or like the commentary about like, do you think she's gay? Or the commentary when people are like, she's probably on her period. Or the commentary of, she wouldn't be such a bitch if she got laid. Like all of that, these are real conversations. This is real stuff that people are saying to you or saying to your peers. And if you don't address that when you're a brand new ensign and you get faced with this, you just kind of go into self-preservation mode, right? And you will either join the conversation or sit silently through the conversation, but very rarely do you end up speaking up and ending the conversation or pointing out how unproductive the conversation is. And so what I was doing with the ensigns was bringing them together and going, when you're faced with this, ask yourself, am I a part of the problem of these types of topics that are coming up? Am I adding to it? Do I add fuel to it by encouraging the men to talk about the other women when I agree with them, when men are criticizing what the woman is doing on the ship? Especially when it has nothing to do with their professional. And it's almost always about, you know, attitude and appearance. And so I would talk about these very real topics. And I think that people just appreciated that I was just calling it out for what it was. I was like, why is it that if she came in and sternly, I had an 04, a lieutenant commander operations officer woman, and people would have all kinds of commentary after she'd leave the room, leading a meeting about how she needed to get laid more, or she was probably on her period. And I'm like, you guys have like not been turning in the thing she's asking for, and she's holding you accountable. And what does that have anything to do with her sex life or her menstrual cycle? And it just was crazy to me that it was the first thing people would do. And when the other women ensigns would join in on that type of banter, it is so degrading to women, and you don't realize that you're not helping the culture just by self-preserving.
So powerful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, okay, I want everyone to hear just that part. If they hear nothing else, I want them to hear just that part of this entire thing. And it resonates so much with my shipboard experience. So thank you.
Like, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah. Gina Frost, go
the
ahead.
Internalized misogyny is real. Sorry, I'll go back on mute. My commentary. Thank you.
No, it's great.
That's fine. Hi. No, I got challenged by my community manager recently to go out on the deck plates and talk to my community. We have a very low female retention. So I'm starting that actually in about 2 weeks. And so the things we talked about today really gave me some like pointers of like what my message is going to be. Because I had like a clue, but I didn't have like a firm thought process yet of like all the things. That's going to just kind of let it be more of an open forum and see where our sailors were at. So that's, yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that.
And good luck on SSLA. I hope you get selected.
Oh, thank you.
One of our few people who are running for election. I think it's membership, right? Is that right? Yeah. Yay. I hope that works. So excited. Can't wait to work with you some more. She's in the nuclear LEO community. If you don't know that. So wonderful. So
there's
great.
Go ahead. A lot of us. There's only 13 women commissioned right now, and I'm number 7 ever.
That's right. It's a very, very small community of LEOs. Anyway, yeah, very, very small. So I think you came to a good, I hope you feel like you came to a good place, both with Lean On and SSLA. Wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording here, and thanks for everyone for listening. And